The night was quiet, too quiet for a gas station on the edge of town. The fluorescent lights above flickered, buzzing like restless insects. The air was heavy with the faint smell of gasoline mixed with dust, and something old, something forgotten. It was the kind of place most people avoided, especially at midnight. But sometimes fate did not ask where you wanted to be. It simply placed you where it wanted you. A white woman in her mid-30s pulled her car into the station. She was restless, tapping her long nails on the steering wheel as if every second wasted here was a personal insult. Her eyes were sharp, her lips tight, and her body language screamed impatience. She stepped out, her heels clicking against the concrete floor. She wore an expensive coat, the kind that suggested money, or at least the desire to appear wealthy. Her eyes scanned the place with suspicion, as if the shadows themselves were enemies. Then her gaze locked on a man. A black man stood quietly beside his car, refueling. He was tall, broad-shouldered, but calm in his movements. He wore simple clothes, a plain jacket, jeans, and shoes that had seen long journeys. His posture was steady, his face unreadable. He did not look around, did not care who was watching him. He simply focused on the task of filling his tank. But to the woman, his silence felt like arrogance. To her, his calmness felt like a challenge. She narrowed her eyes, and before long, her lips curved into a half-smile of disdain. She muttered under her breath, but loud enough for him to hear, of course. Figures always taking forever, always standing in the way. The man glanced at her for the first time. His expression did not change. His eyes were dark, calm, like a deep lake, with secrets hidden at the bottom. He gave her a single look and then returned his attention to the pump, as if she was nothing more than a passing noise. That silence burned her. She shifted closer, pretending to adjust her car but really trying to provoke him. "You think you own this place? Taking your sweet time? Some of us actually have important things to do." Her tone was sharp, her words dripping with superiority. Still, he did not answer. The night deepened. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. The buzzing lights overhead grew louder in her ears, amplifying her anger. She could not stand the quiet anymore. She wanted him to react. She leaned a little closer, lowering her voice, but making sure her insult carried. "People like you, always causing problems, always making others uncomfortable." The man finally capped the fuel tank. He moved with precision, almost as though her words did not exist. Yet the look in his eyes, even if only for a second, sent a chill through the air. It was not anger. It was not fear. It was something else, something stronger, deeper. The woman crossed her arms, waiting for a fight that did not come. She wanted an explosion. She wanted him to snap so she could feel powerful. But instead, the silence felt like a storm gathering on the horizon. Two teenagers walked past, laughing softly at something on a phone. They glanced at the scene, sensing tension but not daring to interfere. The woman noticed them and raised her voice, as if performing for an audience. "You see this?" she said loudly. "This man thinks he can just block the pump like he owns. Typical. Absolutely typical." The boys looked awkward and walked faster, not wanting trouble. But their phones were already in their hands. And in the digital age, every moment could become a story. The man placed the pump back, wiped his hands on a cloth from his pocket, and stood tall. He looked at her again, this time longer. His eyes locked on hers, steady, piercing, as if he could see right through her. And then he simply walked toward the small store at the station. No words. No argument. The woman's jaw dropped. How dare he ignore her? How dare he not bow to her anger? She shouted after him, "Yeah, walk away. Coward. Can't even defend yourself, huh?" Her voice echoed in the empty station, bouncing against walls and glass doors. For a moment everything felt louder, the lights, the crickets, the faraway hum of the highway inside the store. The man picked up a bottle of water. He placed it on the counter, paid in cash, and gave the cashier a polite nod. His movements were calm, deliberate, but his silence was heavier than any insult. Outside, the woman paced, her anger boiling. She pulled out her phone, typing quickly, maybe recording a video, maybe preparing a post. She wanted the world to see her version of the story before anyone else could tell it. When the man stepped out again, she blocked his path. "You think you're better than me, don't you? Too good to speak? Too proud to even look me in the eye?" He finally spoke. His voice was low, steady, but with a weight that pressed on every syllable. "I don't waste words on people who don't deserve them." For the first time, her face faltered. She blinked, caught off guard. And yet her pride returned quickly. She laughed bitterly. "Wow, so dramatic. What are you, some kind of philosopher?" "Let me tell you something, mister. You don't scare me." Not one bit. The man did not answer. He simply walked past her, his steps unhurried, his presence unshaken. But as he reached his car door, he paused. He turned his head slightly, his eyes meeting hers one last time. There was no smile, no anger, just a look that carried something unspoken, a warning, a promise, or perhaps a secret. The woman shivered, though she would never admit it. The sound of his car engine broke the silence as it came to life, strong and deep. The headlights cut through the night, illuminating her face for a moment. In that flash of light, her expression revealed what she tried to hide: uncertainty. He drove away slowly, disappearing into the dark road. But the weight of his presence lingered behind, heavy as stone. The woman stood frozen, her phone still in her hand, her pride battling with something else, fear. And as the taillights vanished into the night, a single thought echoed in her mind, though she could never explain why. Who was that man? Her voice trembled as she whispered to herself, but no one was there to answer. The station was empty again. The buzzing lights flickered above. The air felt colder now, as if the night itself had shifted. The encounter was over, but the story was only beginning, because she had just crossed paths with someone she should never have provoked. The night had not ended for the white woman, even after the man's car disappeared down the lonely road. The echo of his silence stayed with her. It was like a shadow that refused to fade. She tried to laugh it off, shaking her head and muttering to herself. But her hands trembled ever so slightly. "Who does he think he is?" she whispered, climbing back into her own car. Her reflection in the rearview mirror caught her eye. She looked angry but also unsettled. The calmness in his eyes haunted her. It was not the silence of weakness. No, it was the silence of someone who knew more than he showed. She started her car and drove off into the night. The road stretched ahead, empty and dark. The headlights cut through the silence, but her mind replayed the encounter again and again. Each time she remembered his words. "I don't waste words on people who don't deserve them." Her blood boiled. By the time she reached her neighborhood, the anger had returned full force. She was not the type to let things go. She needed control, always. And when someone refused to bow to her, it felt like an insult that had to be repaid. The next morning was bright, but it did little to calm her storm. She dressed quickly, her heels clicking against the wooden floor of her house as she rushed around, grabbing her purse and keys. She looked composed on the outside, but inside she was already thinking about him. She stopped at her mirror one last time. Her lipstick was perfect, her hair neat, her coat polished. She wanted the world to see her as untouchable, powerful. But deep inside, the memory of his steady gaze still stung. She whispered to herself, almost as a promise, "If I see him again, I won't let him get away with that." Later that day, as fate would have it, she saw him again. She was driving through the city, stopping at another gas station far from her home. She wanted to refill quickly before heading into town. The sun was warm, people moved about, and the place was busier than last night. She pulled her car up to a pump and froze. There he was, the same black man from the night before, standing at the far end of the station, calmly refueling his vehicle. He looked almost exactly the same, plain clothes, simple jacket, calm face. But this time in daylight, something about him looked even more commanding. Her chest tightened. She should have ignored him, minded her business. But pride is a dangerous flame, and hers burned brighter than reason. She smirked. Stepping out of her car with exaggerated confidence, the sound of her heels clicking against the pavement turned heads. She wanted people to notice her. She wanted an audience. Unbelievable, she said loudly, as if talking to herself but making sure others could hear. Of all the places, of course he's here again. Blocking the pump like he owns the world. A few people glanced at her, then at the man, then quickly looked away. Nobody wanted trouble. But phones were always close at hand. The man did not look at her. He finished pumping gas, eyes focused, movements slow, as though nothing around him mattered. She felt her pride sting again. He was ignoring her. Pretending she was invisible, her voice sharpened. Hey, I'm talking to you. You think you can just take your sweet time while others wait? Typical. Finally he looked up. It was not a long stare, just a glance, but it felt like a stone dropped into her chest. His eyes were calm, too calm, and that calmness made her rage grow hotter. Nothing to say? Of course not. People like you never take responsibility. Her words sliced through the air. A man walking past raised his eyebrows but said nothing. A woman with a child quickly pulled her daughter closer and walked away. The man capped his fuel tank and wiped his hands, just as he had done the night before. His movements were the same, steady and quiet. But this time, as he turned toward her, he spoke. His voice was low, almost gentle, but every word landed heavy. You don't want to do this? The woman blinked. She hadn't expected him to speak. Not like this. His voice wasn't angry. It wasn't loud. It was warning, simple and cold. She laughed, tossing her hair back. Oh, please. Don't flatter yourself. What are you going to do? Scare me with silence again? The man didn't answer. He started to walk past her toward the store. But she wasn't done. She stepped directly into his path, blocking him. You think ignoring me makes you strong? No, it makes you weak. A real man would stand up and defend himself. But you just walk away. Pathetic. People nearby stopped pretending not to notice. The air thickened. Everyone could feel something building. The man looked at her again, his face unreadable, and then he said quietly, Be careful with your words. They have a way of coming back to you. She frowned. What's that supposed to mean? He didn't explain. He simply walked past her, moving around her like she was nothing more than an obstacle in the road. Her chest burned with humiliation. He wasn't giving her the fight she wanted. He wasn't giving her anything. And somehow that was worse than if he had shouted at her. She turned to the people nearby, desperate to hold her pride. You all saw that, right? He shoved past me. Rude, aggressive, typical. But no one confirmed her words. People lowered their heads, pretending to be busy. And in that silence, her anger turned into something darker. A plan began to form in her mind. She couldn't just let this go. Not again. Not twice. She clenched her fists, whispering under her breath as she stared at his back. You'll regret this. I'll make sure of it. Inside the store, the man picked up another bottle of water, just like before. The cashier looked nervous, glancing outside at the woman pacing angrily. The man placed the bottle on the counter. His voice was calm as always. Thank you. The cashier nodded quickly. No problem, sir. As he left the store, his eyes briefly caught the reflection in the glass doors. The woman was waiting outside, her phone in her hand, her posture sharp like a predator waiting for the right moment. He sighed softly, almost to himself. Some storms chase you, even when you don't move. He stepped outside, the bottle in his hand, his stride calm. But in his silence, there was power. A power that the woman had not yet understood. And as he walked past her once more, her voice sliced through the air, filled with venom and pride. This isn't over. Not even close. The man did not turn. He did not answer. He simply got into his car, the engine humming like a beast beneath the hood. But just before he drove off, he rolled down his window and spoke 5 words that froze her. Where she stood, you picked the wrong person. The words were simple, calm. But they carried a weight that made her knees feel weak. For just a second, and then he was gone. His car vanishing into the flow of traffic, the woman stood there, her phone clutched tightly, her breath shallow. People were still watching, but no one dared speak. Her lips curled into a smile, but it was not a smile of victory. It was the smile of someone who refused to back down, no matter the cost. She whispered to herself, almost trembling with both fear and excitement. We'll see about that. The sun was sliding lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the city. The gas station, once busy with cars and chatter, grew quieter. A soft breeze carried the faint smell of fuel and fried food from the small shop nearby. But the air was heavy, almost electric, as if something unseen was building. The woman leaned against her car, arms crossed, eyes burning with pride and bitterness. She had never been ignored like this. Not once in her life had someone dared to walk away from her without giving her the satisfaction of a fight. But this man, this stranger, had done it twice. She wasn't alone this time, though. People had noticed. People had heard, and even if they pretended to be uninterested, the truth was different. The truth was that every eye, every ear, was secretly following the drama unfolding before them. Two teenagers with skateboards sat near the edge of the station, phones out, pretending to scroll through social media. In reality, their cameras were pointed at the scene. They whispered to each other, laughing nervously. Man, this is crazy. Look at her face. Dude, don't laugh too loud. She'll hear us whatever. This is going viral. Their eyes shifted from the woman's stiff posture to the man who had just stepped out of the store again. A bottle of water in his hand, his movements steady as always. The cashier. Two stood quietly at the counter, pretending to clean the surface, but really watching through the glass. His heart beat faster every time the woman's voice rose. He had seen arguments before, but something about this one felt different. It felt dangerous. A middle-aged man filling his car nearby paused, pretending to adjust the hose while glancing at the scene. He looked at the stranger, then at the woman, then shook his head softly. His instincts told him this wasn't just a simple fight between two strangers. Something deeper was hidden beneath the silence of the man and the sharpness of the woman's words. The woman, sensing the invisible audience around her, raised her chin higher. She wanted them to see her power. She wanted them to hear her side of the story first. Look at him, she said loudly, pointing at the stranger. Acting like he owns the place. Can't even show respect. People like him. Always walking around as if the rules don't matter. Her words sliced through the air, heavy with venom. The teenagers recording gasped softly, knowing they had captured something that would light fire online. The middle-aged man frowned, shaking his head, but he said nothing. The stranger finally stopped walking. He turned, his calm eyes locking onto hers. The crowd around them seemed to hold its breath. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't move aggressively. He simply spoke. You should stop. The simplicity of his words only fueled her anger. She laughed, but her laughter carried no warmth. Stop. Or what? What will you do? Nothing. Just like before. You're all the same. Weak, silent, afraid. Her voice rose louder, echoing across the lot. People nearby shifted uncomfortably. A young mother hurried her child into the car, whispering something under her breath. An old man who had just finished paying for gas stood still for a moment, watching with narrowed eyes. But the stranger didn't flinch. His silence was louder than her insults, and that silence made her furious. You can't even defend yourself, she sneered. What kind of man are you? Standing there like a statue, acting like you're better than everyone else. Newsflash, you're not. You're nothing. The teenagers looked at each other, whispering again. Yo, she's going too far. He's gonna snap, man. He has to. But look at him. He's not even blinking. The stranger's face remained calm, his posture straight. But his eyes carried something deeper. Something that unsettled even the bystanders. It wasn't anger. It wasn't fear. It was patience. A dangerous kind of patience. It's the kind that only came from someone who had nothing to prove. The woman stepped closer, her finger pointing at his chest. Say something. Go ahead. Show all these people how strong you are. Or are you too much of a coward? Gasps rippled through the small crowd. The phones caught every moment, every word. The stranger finally moved. He didn't push her. He didn't raise his voice. He simply stepped aside, walking past her as though her presence was no heavier than air. But before he disappeared into his car, he stopped. Slowly, he turned his head toward the growing circle of witnesses. His eyes scanned them, the teenagers, the old man, the mother, the cashier inside the glass. For a brief moment, it felt as though he looked at each of them, one by one, as if silently telling them, "Remember this." And then he spoke. His voice steady, calm, carrying across the space with strange weight. "Not every fight is worth fighting, but some words. They return to the one who speaks them," the woman scoffed, rolling her eyes, but a flicker of unease crossed her face. The witnesses felt it. They didn't know why, but the stranger's words carried power. They sounded less like a warning and more like a promise. The teenagers exchanged nervous glances. "Dude, I don't think I'd mess with him. Yeah, he's different. You feel that, right?" The old man filled the silence with a soft murmur. "That woman's got no idea who she's dealing with." The stranger got into his car, placed the bottle of water beside him, and started the engine. The low hum filled the air. He didn't speed off. He didn't roar away angrily. He simply pulled out of the station with the same calmness that had carried him through the entire storm. But as his car disappeared into the distance, the station did not return to normal. The air remained thick, the people uneasy. The woman stood there, fists clenched, her face red with anger and pride. She looked around, realizing the eyes of the crowd were still on her. For a moment, her mask cracked. She felt the judgment in their silence, the disapproval in their stares. Quickly, she pulled out her phone, raising her voice again. "You all saw that. He threatened me. He thinks he's untouchable, but he's not. I'll show him. I'll show all of you." But the witnesses weren't convinced. They didn't nod, they didn't cheer, they didn't support her. They simply turned back to their tasks, uneasy, avoiding eye contact. The teenagers, however, had already captured everything. Their eyes gleamed with excitement. This video was going to explode online. As the woman climbed into her car, her hands shook. She tightened her grip on the steering wheel, forcing herself to smile. "He thinks he's in control," she whispered. "But this is my world. I'll make sure he pays." She didn't notice the old man still watching her from the corner. His eyes followed her until she drove away. Then he shook his head slowly and muttered to himself. She picked the wrong man. The following evening arrived with a restless wind. The sky was heavy with gray clouds, as though a storm was waiting for the right moment to break. The city lights flickered against the horizon, and the streets carried that strange silence which often comes before something important. The woman was restless too. She couldn't stop thinking about him, the calm stranger, the man who had walked away from her insults, as if they were dust in the wind. The memory burned her pride like fire. She replayed his words in her head again and again. "You picked the wrong person," every time she remembered.
How?
Her jaw tightened. Who was he to say that? Who was he to make her feel so small with only a few words? She had promised herself she would not let it end like that. And fate, or something darker, gave her the chance. She drove into another gas station that night, far from the others, hoping to refill quickly. But as her headlights swept across the pumps, her heart skipped a beat. There he was, the same car, the same man, calm, steady, filling his tank as though the world around him didn't exist. Her breath quickened. But this time, it wasn't fear. It was rage. This was her chance. This was her moment to prove she was the one in control. She parked beside him with a sharp turn of the wheel, her tires screeching slightly against the pavement. Heads turned. A couple standing by the store door looked up. A man walking his dog across the street paused. The stranger didn't flinch. He didn't even look at her. He just kept refueling. That silence, that unbearable silence, broke her completely. She stormed out of her car, heels clicking loudly against the concrete. Her voice cut through the night. "You again. What is this? Are you following me?" The man didn't respond. He calmly set the pump handle back into place and began to cap his tank. She stepped closer, her anger pouring out like poison. "Answer me. You think you can just walk away every time? You think you're better than me? Say something for once in your life." Still, he didn't answer. His calmness only fueled her fury. People nearby were watching again, pretending not to, but unable to look away. Phones came out slowly, lenses catching the glow of the gas station lights. Her voice rose higher. "Look at you. Acting all calm like you're some kind of saint. You're nothing. Do you hear me? Nothing." She shoved his shoulder. Gasps broke out around them. The teenagers from before, the same ones who had recorded the earlier encounter, were there again by chance. Their cameras were already up, capturing every moment. "Yo," she pushed him. "Dude, she's crazy. He's gonna snap now." The man stood still, his body steady, his expression unchanged. He didn't raise his hand. He didn't push back. He just stared at her, and for a brief second, his eyes locked onto hers with such intensity that her chest tightened. But pride is louder than fear. She shoved him again, harder this time. "Do something. Go on. Show all these people what a coward you are." The witnesses froze. Every eye was on the stranger now. Would he strike back? Would he finally explode? The air was so tense it felt like a wire ready to snap, but he didn't move. Instead, he spoke, his voice calm, deep, unshaken. "You've already lost." The woman blinked, confusion flashing across her angry face. "What did you just say?" "You've already lost," he repeated, his words carrying a weight that silenced the entire station. "Not because of me, but because of yourself?" Her chest rose and fell quickly. For the first time, her anger didn't feel like control. It felt like weakness. She tried to laugh, but it came out shaky. "You think you're so clever, don't you? You think your silence makes you strong? Let's see what happens when everyone sees this." She pointed at the phones recording them, as if the crowd was her weapon. "They'll believe me. They always do. And you." But she stopped, because the stranger's eyes shifted, slowly scanning the crowd. He didn't look nervous. He didn't look trapped. He looked almost certain, as if the cameras weren't her weapons at all, but his. The witnesses could feel it too. The teenagers whispered, "Bro, she doesn't get it. He's not scared. Not even a little." The woman clenched her fists, desperation rising. She shoved him a third time, putting all her weight into it. The man staggered half a step back, but didn't lose his balance. He straightened immediately, standing taller than before, his presence filling the air like thunder before rain, and then, silence. No one moved. No one spoke. The buzzing of the fluorescent lights above was the only sound. The woman's breathing was sharp, almost frantic. The stranger's eyes were calm, steady, unshaken, and for the first time, she felt something she had not felt before. Fear. It was small, buried beneath her pride, but it was there. The man leaned slightly closer, his voice low enough that only she and those closest could hear, yet powerful enough to echo in her mind forever. "You don't know me, but one day soon, you will regret this." Her lips parted, but no words came out. The fire in her chest flickered, weakened by the cold certainty in his tone. The witnesses looked at each other, uneasy. They didn't know who he was, but they knew one thing. This was not an ordinary man. The woman finally stepped back, hiding her shaking hands behind her coat. She forced a laugh, loud and bitter. "Whatever. You're nothing but talk." But her eyes betrayed her. They darted nervously toward the phones, toward the crowd, toward him. She wanted to look powerful, but she couldn't stop the shiver crawling down her spine. The man turned away, walking to his car. His footsteps echoed like steady drums in the night. He opened the door, placed his water bottle inside, and sat down calmly. The engine roared to life. Before pulling out, he lowered his window one last time. His eyes met hers again, holding her in place with that same quiet power. "Be careful what you ask for," he said softly, "because one day, You may get it." Then he drove away, his taillights vanishing into the dark road. The crowd slowly dispersed, whispers filling the air. The teenagers looked at their phones, their hands trembling with excitement. This video. Dude, this is going to blow up. The woman stood frozen, her pride cracking under the weight of fear. She told herself she had one. She told herself he was weak. But deep inside, she knew the truth. She had touched a fire she didn't understand, and fire always burns. The night was heavy with silence. When the woman finally reached home, the air inside her apartment felt colder than usual, though the heater hummed softly in the corner. She tossed her keys on the counter, but they clattered louder than she expected. Every sound seemed sharper, every shadow deeper. She walked quickly to her living room, switching on every light she passed, as if brightness could silence the unease inside her chest. She poured herself a glass of wine, took a long sip, and tried to steady her breathing, but his words kept echoing. "Be careful what you ask for, because one day you may get it." She slammed the glass down harder than she intended. "Who does he think he is?" she muttered aloud, though no one was there to answer. "He's just some stranger." Nothing more, but her voice shook, and her heart knew she didn't believe her own words. She picked up her phone and scrolled through social media, hoping distraction would help. But distraction was impossible. The videos were already spreading. Clips from the gas station flooded her screen. The comments were brutal. "This lady again. Doesn't she ever learn? That guy's patience is unreal. Respect. Why is she always starting drama? This won't end well for her." Her hands tightened around the phone. She had wanted attention, yes. She had wanted to humiliate him. But now the attention was turning against her. Her pride burned. But beneath it, a thin layer of fear grew thicker with each passing second. She closed the apps quickly, trying to shut it all out. She paced her apartment, back and forth, her heels clicking against the wooden floor. She picked up the glass again, drinking faster this time, as if wine could drown the fear in her chest. And then her phone rang. The sound startled her. She nearly dropped the glass. The ringtone echoed through the apartment like a warning bell. She rushed to the counter where she had left it. The screen glowed with an unknown number. She hesitated. Her finger hovered over the decline button. But curiosity pulled her in. She answered, "Hello." Her voice was sharper than she wanted it to be. At first there was only silence. A long, heavy silence that made her throat dry. "Who is this?" she demanded, and then, the voice, calm, deep, unmistakable. "You shouldn't have done that." Her blood ran cold. She stumbled back, the phone nearly slipping from her hand. "You?" she whispered. "How did you get this number?" The man's voice remained steady. "You don't need to know how. What you need to know is that every action has a price." Her mouth went dry. She tried to sound strong. "You think you can scare me? You're nothing. Do you hear me? Nothing." But her words cracked, and he heard it. He chuckled softly, not cruel, not loud, but enough to make her skin crawl. "You still don't understand. You think you're the one holding power? But it was never yours to begin with." She gripped the phone tighter, forcing her voice louder. "Stay away from me. I'll call the police if you try anything." The stranger's tone didn't change. "The police can't protect you from yourself." And then, silence. The call ended. Her knees nearly buckled. She stared at the screen in shock, her reflection looking back at her through the dark glass. Was it real? Was it a trick? Could it have been someone else? She tried to convince herself that it was fake, that maybe it was just a prank. But deep down she knew. It was him. Her hand shook violently. She turned every lock on her door, pulled the curtains shut, and switched off the lights. She sat in the corner of her couch, knees pulled close to her chest, listening to every creak of the apartment as if the walls themselves were whispering. Outside, the wind howled, carrying with it the faint sound of footsteps from the street below. Every noise felt closer. Every shadow felt darker. Hours passed, but sleep never came. She drifted in and out of restless dozes, the phone still clutched tightly in her hand, By morning, the world outside was bright again. But her mind wasn't. The phone call lingered like smoke in her chest. His words wouldn't leave. And as she looked in the mirror that morning, she barely recognized herself. Her eyes were red, her face pale. She had never looked so fragile. But pride is a dangerous thing. She slammed her hands against the sink, forcing herself to stand tall. "No," she whispered. "I won't let him control me. I won't let him win." Her pride told her she was strong. Her fear told her she was breaking. Neither voice would leave her alone, and somewhere, far from her apartment, the man sat calmly, his phone resting on the table beside him. His expression was unreadable, his eyes steady. He had made the first move, and it was only the beginning. The woman had always liked her morning walks. They gave her a sense of control, a sense of routine. She would sip her coffee, scroll her phone, and watch the world begin its day. But now, things felt different. That morning, when she stepped outside, the world looked the same. Cars rushing by, neighbors walking their dogs, children waiting for the school bus. Yet she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Her eyes darted to every corner, every shadow between buildings, every passing face. It was as if the whole world was watching her. But it wasn't the world she feared, it was him. She adjusted her coat and forced herself to walk down the sidewalk. "He's not here," she whispered to herself. "It's just my imagination." But the mind is cruel when it's afraid. Every footstep behind her felt too close. Every car that slowed at the intersection felt suspicious. Every shadow stretched too far. She reached the small cafe she usually stopped at, trying to calm herself with routine. The bell over the door jingled as she stepped inside. The warmth and smell of fresh coffee wrapped around her like a blanket. People chatted quietly at tables. The barista smiled, and music hummed softly through the speakers. For a moment, she almost believed she was safe. She ordered her drink, sat by the window, and pulled out her phone. The videos of her at the gas station were still everywhere. Millions of views, thousands of comments, some mocking, some angry, some even threatening. She scrolled quickly, her fingers trembling, and then she froze. A new comment. Short, simple. "Look behind you." Her heart jumped. She dropped the phone on the table, her eyes snapping to the window. Outside, the street looked normal. People walking, cars passing. Nothing unusual. She laughed nervously, trying to convince herself it was just a cruel stranger online. Just a coincidence. She picked up her drink, sipping shakily. But then she noticed it. Across the street, a man stood under a streetlight. He was tall, still almost blending into the background. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He just stood there, facing her direction. Her chest tightened. She squinted, trying to see his face, but the shadows hid it. She blinked once, twice, and when she looked again, he was gone. Her breath caught. She scanned the street, searching desperately. Nothing. The barista called out her name for her order, but the sound made her jump so violently that people turned their heads. She grabbed her coffee and rushed out of the cafe, her steps fast and uneven. The street felt louder now. The cars too close. The people too near. She walked quickly, clutching the cup like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. She turned corners, glanced behind her, crossed streets without thinking. Every time she looked back, she thought she saw someone. A tall figure, always just far enough away. Her pace turned into a near run. When she finally reached her apartment building, she fumbled with the keys, her hands shaking. She slammed the door behind her and locked it, breathing hard. But even inside, the feeling didn't leave. She checked every room, every closet, every window. Nothing. The silence of her apartment pressed against her ears, and then her phone buzzed. She froze. It was a text. Unknown number. Running won't help. Her hands went cold. She dropped the phone as if it had burned her. She staggered back, her heart pounding in her throat. She tried to convince herself it was a prank, that it couldn't be him, that strangers online were only playing with her. But deep inside, she knew. It was him. The man from the gas station. The one who had spoken with calmness when she screamed. The one who had warned her quietly, without raising a hand. The one who had promised regret. And now, shadows stretched into every corner of her life. She curled up on the couch, pulling a blanket around her shoulders, rocking back and forth. Her pride told her to stay strong, but her fear whispered the truth. She was losing control, and somewhere outside, unseen in the crowd, a man walked slowly down the street, his steps calm, his eyes steady. He wasn't rushing. He wasn't chasing, because he knew she would feel him. Everywhere in fear would do the work for him. The woman barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw shadows moving across the walls. Every sound, the creak of pipes, the hum of the refrigerator, the faint sirens in the distance made her body jolt awake. By morning, her eyes were bloodshot, her hair unkempt, her hands trembling from exhaustion. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring blankly at the floor. Clutching her phone like it was both her curse and her shield, the memory of the text haunted. Running won't help. Her pride wanted to delete it, pretend it never happened. But her fear wouldn't let her. She checked her phone again and again, as if the words might disappear on their own, but they didn't. And then, as the sun rose higher, her phone buzzed again. Her heart leaped. She grabbed it with shaking hands. Another unknown number. Another message. This time, it wasn't words. It was a picture. Her blood froze as she stared at the screen. It was her apartment building. The photo was taken from outside at street level. The angle was clear, the focus sharp. Someone had been standing outside her home, watching, waiting. Her stomach twisted. She dropped the phone onto the bed and backed away, her hands covering her mouth. No, 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 no. She rushed to the window and yanked the curtains open. Her eyes scanned the street below, desperate, frantic. People walked their dogs, kids played, cars moved past. It all looked normal, but that picture proved otherwise. Someone had been there. Someone had close enough to know exactly where she lived. Her knees weakened and she collapsed onto the couch, shaking. She wanted to call someone, the police, her friends, anyone. But her pride whispered again, what will you say? That a stranger sent you a picture. They'll laugh at you. They'll say you're paranoid. And maybe they would. But her fear screamed louder. She picked up the phone and dialed the police anyway. The call rang twice before someone answered. 911, what's your emergency? Her voice cracked. Someone is stalking me. They know where I live. The operator asked for details. She explained as best as she could, stumbling over her words, trying to sound calm but failing. She sent them the photo. They promised to send a patrol car to check the area. Relief washed over her, but it was thin. Temporary. When the officers arrived, they scanned the street, asked her questions, even checked the building's security cameras. But of course, the cameras showed nothing clear. Just shadows. Figures too far away to identify. They told her to stay calm, lock her doors, and call again if anything happened. Then they left. As soon as their car disappeared, the silence returned. And then, her phone buzzed again. Her hands shook as she picked it up. Another picture, this time. The photo was of her, taken inside her apartment. Her breath stopped. She dropped the phone like it was fire, her scream echoing through the empty room. She stumbled back, her eyes darting wildly around her apartment. How? How could it be possible? Her gaze shot to the windows, locked. The doors bolted. She searched every corner, every closet, under the bed. Behind the curtains, nothing. Yet the photo was real. Someone had been inside. Or was still inside. Her chest heaved. Her vision blurred. She backed against the wall, clutching a kitchen knife she grabbed from the counter. Her knuckles turned white as she gripped it tightly. Minutes passed. The silence pressed heavier than another buzz. Her phone lit up on the floor. She hesitated before picking it up, her hands trembling so badly she nearly dropped it again. This time, it wasn't a photo. It was a message. You can't hide from yourself. Her stomach churned. Her fear twisted into anger. Why are you doing this to me? She screamed into the empty room, as though he could hear her. Her voice echoed back, the silence mocking her. She sank to the floor, tears filling her eyes. She wanted to call the police again, but something inside her told her it wouldn't matter. This man, he wasn't just watching. He was controlling. Every move she made felt like part of his plan. She stared at the message again, whispering the words to herself. You can't hide from yourself. What did it mean? Why those words? Her mind raced, but no answer came. Only more fear. Hours passed in suffocating silence. She didn't eat. She didn't sleep. She only sat with the knife in her hand, staring at the phone, waiting, and somewhere. Out in the city, a man walked calmly down the street. His phone rested in his pocket, his eyes steady, his lips curved in the faintest trace of a smile, because the message had been sent, and she was all ready. Falling apart, the woman hadn't left her apartment in 2 days. The curtains stayed closed. The lights stayed dim. She lived in a cage of her own fear, clutching the kitchen knife as if it was the only thing protecting her. Every creak of the floorboards, every whisper of wind against the window, every vibration of her phone made her jump. Sleep barely touched her eyes, and when it did, it brought nightmares, shadows standing at her door, hands reaching from the dark, the man's calm voice repeating over and over, "You can't hide from yourself." By the third morning, she looked broken. Her hair was tangled, her skin pale, her hands trembling without end. She hadn't eaten more than a few bites of food, but her pride still whispered lies. You're not weak. You're not afraid. You're in control. And then a knock on the door. Her body froze. It was soft at first. 3 gentle taps. She raised the knife higher, backing into the corner. Her chest pounded. Another knock followed, firmer this time, and then a voice. Please. It's me. I just want to talk. She blinked. It wasn't his voice. It was softer, nervous, a woman's voice. Her throat tightened. She tiptoed toward the door, pressing her ear against it. Who are you? She demanded a pause. Then the voice replied quietly, someone who knows what you're going through. Please, open the door. Her grip on the knife tightened. Her mind screamed trap, but something in the woman's tone. It carried desperation, a fear that felt too real, too fake. Still, she hesitated. How do I know you're not with him? The voice on the other side lowered, trembling. Because I was like you once, and if you don't listen, it will be too late. Her breath caught. Her hand hovered over the lock. Against every instinct, she turned it. The door creaked open an inch. A woman stood in the hallway, her hood pulled low over her face, her eyes darting nervously. She looked fragile, exhausted, her hands trembling just as badly as hers. Can I come in? The stranger whispered. After a moment's hesitation, the woman stepped aside. The hooded stranger entered quickly, closing the door behind her as though the hallway itself was dangerous. The 2 women stared at each other in silence. The hooded woman's face was pale, marked with dark circles under her eyes. She looked as if she hadn't slept in weeks. Finally, the hooded woman spoke. He found you too, didn't he? The woman's stomach dropped. Her grip on the knife loosened slightly. Who is he? The hooded woman's lips trembled. She sat down at the edge of the couch, her shoulders hunched. I don't know his real name. No one does. He doesn't need one. People like us. We just call him the Shadow. Her chest tightened. The Shadow. The hooded woman nodded slowly. He watches. He waits. And then he breaks you piece by piece. Not with violence. Not at first. With fear. With silence. With words you'll never forget. The woman's knees weakened. She sank into the chair opposite her. Why me? She whispered. The hooded stranger looked at her with haunted eyes. Because you made the mistake of standing against him. That's how it starts. You think you've embarrassed him, insulted him, but really, she swallowed hard. He chose you. The words chilled her blood. Chose me. For what? For the game, the hooded woman said, and he doesn't lose. The apartment fell into heavy silence. The only sound was the faint buzz of the refrigerator in the kitchen. The woman wanted to laugh, to call it all nonsense, but deep down she couldn't. Every word felt true. Every word matched what she had already seen. The photos, the texts, the calls. Her voice cracked. "How do you know all this?" The hooded woman's eyes filled with tears. "Because he did it to me. For months. The calls, the photos, the messages. He always knew where I was, what I was doing. He broke me until I couldn't live a normal life anymore. I left everything behind. My job, my family, my name, and still. I feel him everywhere." The woman's heart pounded so loud she could barely hear her own breath. "Then why are you here? Why come to me?" The hooded stranger leaned closer, her voice trembling. "Because maybe, if you know early enough, you can stop it. Maybe if you fight back differently than I did, you can end it before it's too late." Her pride flared. "Then how? Tell me how to stop him." The hooded woman shook her head slowly. "That's the thing. You don't stop him. You can only survive him. And to survive him," she trailed off, her eyes darting nervously to the window, "you have to be willing to face yourself." The woman frowned. "What does that even mean?" The hooded stranger's lips trembled, her voice breaking. "That's the part I never understood. And that's why I lost everything." Suddenly, a vibration. Both women froze. It was the phone. The woman's phone. The screen lit up on the coffee table. One new message. Slowly, with dread crawling up her spine, she picked it up. It was another photo. Her hands shook violently as she opened it. The picture showed the two of them, sitting in her apartment right now, taken from inside the room. The hooded woman gasped. Her face went pale, her entire body trembling. No, not again. The woman's knife clattered to the floor. Her chest tightened as the truth sank in. He was here somewhere, watching, always watching. The photo burned in her hands. It was impossible, and yet it was real. A picture of her and the hooded stranger sitting together inside her apartment, taken from a place she could not see. Her heart pounded so violently it hurt. The air felt thinner. She dropped the phone onto the table as though it had turned to fire. The hooded woman sat frozen, her face pale, her hands gripping the edge of the couch so tightly her knuckles turned white. Tears welled in her eyes. "He's here," she whispered, her voice trembling. "He's watching us right now." The woman staggered to her feet, her body shaking. She scanned the corners of the apartment, the ceiling, the vents, the windows. Her eyes searched for cameras, holes, shadows, anything that could explain how the photo was possible. But she found nothing. No, she muttered, pulling at her hair. "This isn't real. It can't be real. He's not here. He can't be here." The hooded woman stood suddenly, her voice sharp with panic. "Don't you understand? He doesn't need to be here. He's everywhere. You can't escape him." The woman's chest heaved. She clutched the knife again from the floor, pointing it wildly around the room, as if she could stab the air itself. Her voice cracked into a scream. "Where are you? Show yourself." The hooded woman tried to calm her, stepping closer. "Please, stop. That's exactly what he wants. He wants you to lose yourself. That's how he wins." But the woman spun around, her eyes wide, her breathing frantic. She stared at the hooded stranger as suspicion boiled in her mind. "How do I know you're not with him?" she hissed. The hooded woman froze. "What? You came here, out of nowhere? You knew about him? You knew what he says, what he does. How do I know you're not leading him straight to me?" Tears streamed down the hooded woman's face. "I'm not with him. I swear it. I came here to warn you, but paranoia had already taken root." Her voice grew sharper, darker. "Maybe you're lying. Maybe you're just part of his game. Maybe you're the one sending the messages." The hooded woman shook her head violently, holding out her hands. No, listen to me. He wants this. He wants us to turn against each other. That's how he breaks us." But the woman couldn't hear reason anymore. Her pride and fear twisted together, painting everything as a threat. She raised the knife, pointing it at the hooded stranger. Tell me the truth. Tell me right now. Who sent you? The hooded woman backed away, her voice breaking. I told you. I was like you. I was his target. Please. Please believe me. The woman's grip tightened on the knife. Sweat dripped down her forehead. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. She could barely see straight. Then the phone buzzed again. Both women froze. The woman snatched it from the table, her hand trembling. Another message. She opened it. This time it wasn't a photo. It was words. She's lying. Her stomach dropped. She lifted her eyes slowly toward the hooded stranger, who stood there shaking, tears streaming down her face. The hooded woman whispered, almost pleading, "Don't listen to him. Don't let him control you." But the woman's mind was spinning out of control. The room seemed to tilt, the walls pressing closer. Her own breathing was too loud in her ears. Her thoughts screamed, "Who do I trust? Who's real? Who's part of him?" The hooded stranger stepped forward carefully, her voice soft, broken. "Please put the knife down. You're stronger than this. Don't let him win." Another buzz. Another message. End it before she ends you. The woman's entire body shook. The knife trembled in her hand. Her eyes darted between the phone and the hooded woman. The hooded stranger whispered, "He's twisting everything. Can't you see? He wants you to do something you'll regret." But paranoia screamed louder. Every second felt like a trap. Every word felt like a lie. And then, sound. A creak from the hallway outside. Both women's heads snapped toward the door. Silence followed, heavy and suffocating. The hooded woman's face drained of color. She whispered, "He's here." The woman gripped the knife tighter, her entire body trembling. Her eyes darted back to the hooded stranger, then to the phone, then to the door. Her mind was shattering. Her trust was gone, and somewhere, beyond the walls, beyond the door, beyond the shadows, a man stood in silence. His presence was unseen but undeniable, watching, waiting, smiling. The apartment clock struck midnight. The sound echoed through the silence like a death bell. The woman sat frozen on the edge of her chair, a knife still trembling in her hand. The hooded stranger sat across from her, pale and shaking, whispering to herself as if trying to pray. The phone lay between them on the table, its dark screen glowing faintly with the threat of more messages. Neither dared to move, then dash knock. A single, heavy strike against the apartment door. The sound made both women jump. The knife nearly slipped from the woman's hand. Her chest tightened so much she could barely breathe. Another knock followed, this time louder, longer. The hooded stranger whispered, "Don't answer. Don't move." The woman's throat was dry. Her heart hammered so violently she thought it might burst. What if it's him? She whispered back. The hooded stranger's eyes glistened with terror. "That's exactly why you can't open it." Silence. For a moment, it seemed as though the knocking had stopped. They sat in complete stillness, both holding their breath. Then 3 sharp knocks, in rhythm, almost like a signal. The phone buzzed on the table. The woman flinched but forced herself to look. A new message glowed across the screen. "I'm here." Her stomach dropped. Her mouth went dry. The hooded stranger shook her head violently, whispering faster now. "He's playing with you. He wants you to open the door. Don't listen. Don't do it." But the woman's mind spun in circles. What if it isn't him? What if it's someone else? What if this is my only chance to end it? Another knock. Louder this time, shaking the frame. Her chest heaved. She gripped the knife tighter, her hands slick with sweat. Step by step, she rose from the chair and moved toward the door. The hooded stranger leapt to her feet. "No, don't. That's what he wants," the woman snapped, her voice trembling with hysteria. "And what if it's not him? What if it's someone who can help me?" What if the knocks grew furious, pounding in rapid succession? The walls seemed to vibrate. The woman pressed her ear against the door. She held her breath, straining to hear. At first, nothing. Then something faint. Breathing. Slow, deliberate breathing. Her entire body froze. The sound was too close, too human, too intentional. She stumbled back. Clutching the knife, the hooded stranger whispered, "It's him. He's waiting for you to open it." The woman shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "Why is he doing this? What does he want from me?" The hooded stranger's voice broke. "He wants you broken. He wants to own your fear. That's his power." Another buzz from the phone. She picked it up with trembling hands. This time, the message wasn't words. It was another photo. The image showed her standing at the door, knife in hand, ear pressed against the wood. Taken from behind her, her scream tore through the room as she dropped the phone. She spun around wildly, her eyes darting to every corner. He's inside. He's already inside. The hooded stranger rushed to her side, grabbing her shoulders. "Listen to me. He's making you believe that. He wants you to fall apart. Don't give him that power." But the woman shoved her away, her voice cracking into rage. "How do you know so much? How do you know exactly what he wants? Maybe you're the one sending these messages? Maybe you're him." The hooded stranger's face twisted with anguish. "I'm not him. I swear I'm not." The woman raised the knife between them, her hands shaking violently. Tears blurred her vision. She didn't know who to trust, who to fear. Everyone and everything felt like an enemy. And then silence. The pounding on the door stopped. The phone went dark. The breathing faded into nothing. The sudden stillness was worse than the noise. It wrapped around them like a suffocating blanket. The woman dropped to her knees, sobbing. The knife clattered to the floor beside her. The hooded stranger knelt too, speaking gently now. "This is what he does. He breaks you until you can't tell what's real. But you have to fight it. You have to hold on." The woman buried her face in her hands, her voice muffled. I can't do this anymore. He's everywhere. He's everything." The hooded stranger placed a trembling hand on her shoulder. "No, he's only as strong as your fear. If you stop feeding it, he loses." The woman lifted her tear-streaked face, her eyes hollow. "And if I can't stop?" The hooded stranger's voice trembled. "Then he takes everything." A faint sound broke the silence. Not from the door. Not from the phone. From inside the apartment. A slow, deliberate creak of a floorboard just down the hallway. Both women froze, their eyes wide with terror. The hooded stranger's lips parted in a whisper. "He's here." The woman's knife lay on the floor beside her. Her hand hovered over it, shaking. Her breath came in shallow gasps. Somewhere in the shadows of the apartment, footsteps began to move. Slow, patient, certain. Closer, closer. The apartment was drowning in silence, broken only by the slow creak of footsteps in the hallway. The woman's breath caught in her throat. Every nerve in her body screamed at her to move, to run, but her legs felt like stone. The hooded stranger grabbed her arm. Whispering urgently, "Don't make a sound," both crouched low, their eyes fixed on the dark hallway. The shadows stretched long and heavy, swallowing everything beyond the faint glow of the lamp. The footsteps stopped, silence, then dash another creak. Closer this time, the woman's hand trembled as it reached for the knife on the floor. Her fingers curled around the handle, slick with sweat. Her heart pounded against her ribs like a drumbeat of terror. The hooded stranger whispered, "We need to hide. Now." But the woman shook her head violently. Her pride wouldn't let her. "No, if I run, he wins. I'm not afraid." Her whisper cracked at the end, betraying the truth. She was terrified. The hooded stranger's face twisted with desperation. "This isn't about pride. This is survival." Another step. Another groan of the floorboards. Whoever or whatever was in the hallway was moving toward them with purpose. The woman forced herself to stand. Knife raised, her voice trembling but loud enough to echo through the apartment. "Show yourself." The hooded stranger's eyes widened in horror. She hissed through clenched teeth, "Are you insane?" The hallway remained still. No answer. No movement. Just silence pressing down on them. Then the lamp flickered. Once, twice, and the room went dark. The woman's scream tore through the blackness as she clutched the knife, her eyes darting blindly in every direction. The hooded stranger grabbed her hand, whispering frantically, "Stay quiet. He can see us." "We can't see him." The woman's chest heaved, every breath loud and ragged. In the suffocating dark, she swore she could hear it breathing. Low, steady breathing, inches away from her. Her voice cracked, barely more than a whisper. "He's here." The hooded stranger tightened her grip on her hand. "Don't give in. That's how he breaks you." Suddenly, the phone lit up on the table, screen casting a faint glow across the room. A message appeared. "Turn around." The woman's blood froze. Her hands shook so violently the knife almost slipped from her grasp. The hooded stranger whispered urgently, "Hey, don't look. It's a trick. Don't do it." But the woman's body betrayed her. Against every instinct, her head turned slowly toward the hallway, and there, just for a heartbeat, she saw it. A figure, tall, motionless, standing in the shadows. Its face was hidden in the dark, but its eyes glowed faintly. Reflecting the dim light of the phone, watching her, her scream ripped through the apartment as she stumbled back, crashing into the table. The phone clattered to the floor. The hooded stranger lunged forward, grabbing her by the shoulders. "Listen to me. Don't look at him. Don't give him your fear." But the woman couldn't stop trembling. Her voice broke into sobs. "He's real. He's real. He's here." The figure didn't move. It just stood there in the dark, watching, silent, patient. The hooded stranger pulled the woman toward the kitchen, whispering frantically, "We have to get out, now." But the woman resisted, her pride still fighting even as her body crumbled. No, I won't run from him. I won't." The lights flickered back on. The hallway was empty. The figure was gone. The woman's knees buckled. She collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. She clutched the knife so tightly her hand bled from the blade pressing into her palm. The hooded stranger knelt beside her, her voice trembling but firm. "Do you see now? He's not just a man. He's a shadow. He'll always be there, waiting. And if you let him inside your mind, you'll never be free." The woman stared at the empty hallway, tears streaming down her face. Her voice was a broken whisper. "Then how do I stop him?" The hooded stranger's eyes darkened, her voice heavy with sorrow. "You don't. You survive him. And survival means losing parts of yourself." The woman shook her head violently, gripping the knife like a lifeline. "No, I won't lose. I won't let him take anything from me." The hooded stranger looked at her with pity. "That's what I said once." Another buzz from the phone. Both women froze. The woman picked it up with trembling hands. This time, the message was different. "Next time, you'll see my face." The phone slipped from her hands. Shattering against the floor, the woman buried her face in her palms, sobbing uncontrollably. The hooded stranger closed her eyes, whispering as though speaking to herself, "He's chosen you. And once he chooses, there's no escape." The lamp flickered again, just once, and somewhere unseen. The sound of a low chuckle echoed faintly through the apartment. The apartment felt colder than ever. The woman sat on the floor, knees pulled to her chest, the knife resting loosely in her hand. The hooded stranger hovered nearby, her face pale, her hands trembling. The words on the phone still echoed inside both their minds. "Next time. You'll see my face." The woman's breathing was shallow, her voice a fragile whisper. "Why me? Why does he want me?" The hooded stranger looked at her with haunted eyes. "Because you resisted him. That's enough. Once he chooses you, it's not about what you did. It's about what he wants you to become." The woman shook her head violently. "No, I won't let him win. He thinks I'll break, but I'm stronger than that." The hooded stranger's lips trembled. "That's what I thought too." For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence pressed down on them like a weight, then the phone buzzed again. The woman flinched but forced herself to look. Her trembling hands picked it up. This time the message wasn't just text. It was a video. She tapped it open with shaking fingers. The screen showed a dimly lit room. A chair sat in the center, ropes dangling from its arms. The camera shifted slowly, revealing walls covered in photos. Her photos. Pictures of her walking to work, buying groceries, standing at the gas station, sitting in her apartment, every part of her life, captured without her knowing. At the end of the video, the camera turned toward the lens itself. For a heartbeat, she saw it his reflection. A face, not fully clear. Shadowed, distorted, but enough. Eyes cold and unblinking. A mouth curved in a faint, mocking smile. Her stomach dropped. The phone slipped from her hands and clattered to the floor. The hooded stranger stared at her, her voice breaking. "You saw him, didn't you?" The woman's lips trembled. He's real. He's not just a shadow." The hooded stranger shook her head slowly, sorrow in her eyes. "No, he's both. Real enough to touch you. Dark enough to haunt you. That's why no one escapes." The woman pressed her hands against her head, rocking slightly. Her voice cracked into sobs. I can't do this. He knows everything. He's everywhere. He's inside my life." The hooded stranger crouched in front of her, gripping her shoulders. Her voice trembled but was firm. "Then you have two choices. You let him break you until you're nothing, or you face him. Look into his eyes and refuse to give him what he wants." The woman lifted her tear-streaked face. Her voice was hollow. "And what does he want?" The hooded stranger's lips pressed into a thin line. "Your fear? Your shame. He feeds on the parts of you try to hide. That's why he never loses. Everyone has something they're afraid to face." The woman shook her head violently. "No, not me. I'm not afraid of anything." The hooded stranger's eyes glistened. "Then he'll prove you wrong." Another buzz. The woman picked up the phone again, her hands trembling so hard she could barely hold it. The new message was short. "Look in the mirror." Her stomach twisted. Slowly, almost against her will, she turned her head toward the hallway mirror hanging near the door. Her reflection stared back. Pale skin, wide, terrified eyes, hair tangled, knife clutched in her hand, but then she froze. Behind her reflection, faint but undeniable, stood another figure, tall, dark, watching. Her scream tore through the apartment as she spun. Around, the hallway was empty. The hooded stranger rushed to her, grabbing her arms. "What did you see?" The woman's chest heaved as tears streamed down her face. "He was there. Behind me. I saw him. I saw him." The hooded stranger's voice cracked with urgency. "That's the revelation. Don't you understand? He's not just in the shadows. He's in you." The woman's mind shattered. Her voice was a broken whisper. No, that's not true." But deep down, something inside her knew. He wasn't just watching her. He was part of her. Her reflection, her fear, her darkness. The phone buzzed again, louder this time, vibrating across the floor until it landed at her feet. A final message appeared. "Next time, the face you see will be your own." The woman dropped the knife. Her body shook violently as she collapsed to her knees. The hooded stranger closed her eyes, whispering like a prayer. It's begun. And somewhere in the silence, faint but undeniable, came the sound of laughter, not outside, not inside the room, inside her own mind. The woman no longer trusted her own reflection. Every time she looked in the mirror, she braced herself to see him tall, silent, waiting. Sometimes the glass showed only her pale, hollow face. Other times, for the briefest moment, another image flickered. Dark eyes, faint smile, a shadow wearing her skin. Sleep became impossible. Every time her eyes closed, she felt him there, standing at the foot of her bed, leaning close enough to whisper words she couldn't understand. When she woke, her body shook, her sheets damp with sweat. The hooded stranger stayed by her side. But even her presence no longer brought comfort. The woman's paranoia grew sharper. She began watching the stranger constantly, waiting for her to slip, to reveal herself as part of the trap. Her voice turned harsh, suspicious. "Why are you still here? Why haven't you left?" The The hooded stranger's face softened with sorrow. Because I know what you're going through. You need someone who understands. But the woman snapped back, her eyes wild. Or maybe you're just here to finish what he started. The hooded stranger lowered her gaze, whispering that's exactly what he wants. For you to lose trust in everyone, the woman pressed her hands against her temples, her voice breaking. I don't know what's real anymore. I don't know if you're real. And in the silence that followed, she heard it, a laugh. Not out loud. Not from the shadows, from inside her head. She froze, her breath caught in her throat. Her eyes darted around the room. The hooded stranger looked at her with concern. What is it? What do you hear? The woman's voice trembled. He's in my mind. He's laughing. The hooded stranger's expression darkened. That's how it begins. Her chest tightened. What begins? The hooded stranger's voice cracked, heavy with dread. The possession. Days blurred together. The woman stopped checking the clock, stopped eating, stopped caring. Her world shrank into a haze of whispers, flickering lights, reflections she no longer trusted. The shadow's voice grew louder. Sometimes it mocked her. Sometimes it tempted her. Sometimes it spoke truths she never wanted to hear. You hate her, it whispered about the hooded stranger. You know she's lying. You hate yourself, it whispered when she broke down crying. That's why I'm here. You'll never escape me, it whispered every time she tried to ignore it at first. She screamed back at the voice, begging it to leave. Then she tried silence, hoping it would fade. But silence only made it stronger, and slowly, terrifyingly, she began to answer it, not out loud. Not at first, but in her mind, and the shadow replied. One night the hooded stranger woke to the sound of movement. She sat up on the couch, heart pounding, and saw the woman standing in the kitchen, staring at the knife in her hand. The hooded stranger rushed to her. Put it down, please. The woman's eyes were glazed, distant, as if she wasn't fully present. Her lips moved, but her words weren't to the stranger. They're wrong, aren't they? She whispered. The hooded stranger froze. Who are you talking to? The woman's gaze flicked up, sharp and unnatural. Her voice was lower now, almost not her own. Him, the hooded stranger's blood ran cold. No, don't listen to him. He's inside you, twisting your mind. You have to fight. The woman smiled faintly, but it wasn't her smile. It was something cruel, mocking. Why fight myself? She whispered. The hooded stranger's hands trembled. That's not you. That's him speaking through you. The woman tilted her head, eyes cold. Maybe we're the same now. Her grip on the knife tightened. For a moment, the hooded stranger thought she would strike. But instead, the woman lowered it, laughing softly. The sound chilled the room. It wasn't her laugh. The hooded stranger whispered, tears forming in her eyes. He's taking you. The woman turned away, her voice eerily calm. No, I'm letting him in. From that night on, she changed. Her movements grew slower, more deliberate, as though someone else was guiding her body. Her voice carried tones that weren't her own. Sometimes she spoke to the hooded stranger with warmth, almost like her old self. Other times, her words cut like blades, cruel and sharp. The hooded stranger never knew who she would face, the broken woman clinging to sanity, or the shadow wearing her skin. One evening, as the hooded stranger prepared food, the woman appeared behind her silently. So close, she nearly dropped the knife. You can't save me, the woman whispered, her eyes glinting with something unnatural. The hooded stranger turned slowly, fear clawing at her chest. Yes, I can. You're stronger than him. You can fight. The woman leaned closer, her breath cold against the stranger's ear. What if I don't want to fight? The hooded stranger recoiled, tears spilling down her cheeks. That's not you talking. The woman smirked faintly, tilting her head. Isn't it? The nights grew longer. The whispers never stopped. The shadow no longer appeared only in mirrors or hallways. He was in her mind, her voice, her hands, and slowly, terrifyingly, she began to believe he had always been there, that maybe he wasn't an intruder. Maybe he was part of her. One night, she stood before the mirror again. Her reflection stared back, eyes hollow, knife clutched tight. She whispered, "Who are you?" And the reflection smiled. Her voice answered back, but it wasn't hers. "I'm you." That woman no longer felt like herself. She woke up in places she didn't remember walking to. She spoke words she didn't remember saying. Sometimes she found herself holding objects in her hands, candles, matches, broken glass, as if someone else had placed them there, and always there was the laugh. Not outside. Not in the shadows. Inside her, the hooded stranger watched helplessly as the woman slipped further away. Each day her eyes no longer carried the fear of someone being hunted. Instead, they glowed with something darker, something hungry. The stranger begged her constantly, "Please don't listen to him. You're stronger than this." But the woman only smiled faintly, as if the words amused her. "You still don't understand. He's not against me. He's part of me now." The hooded stranger shook her head desperately. "No, he's stealing you, piece by piece. I've seen this before. I've seen others lose themselves to him." The woman leaned closer, her voice low and calm. "Then maybe they weren't strong enough. Maybe I am." At first, the takeover was subtle. Her movements became sharper, her posture more confident, her voice steadier. She walked with a presence that didn't belong to her, like a puppet. Moving under the guidance of invisible strings, the hooded stranger noticed the difference. "You're not you," she whispered one night. The woman smirked. "Maybe this is who I was meant to be." But the hooded stranger could see the truth in her eyes. Behind the confidence, behind the strange calmness, something else peered out. Something watching. Something waiting. One evening, the woman sat in front of the mirror again. She didn't flinch at the sight of her reflection this time. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She simply stared. Her reflection stared back, smiling faintly. And then, slowly, the reflection raised its hand before she did. Her heart skipped a beat. For a moment she thought she imagined it. But then she realized the mirror no longer belonged to her. Her reflection was not her own. The shadow had taken it. The days after that blurred into chaos. The woman's voice changed. Sometimes mid-sentence, it dropped lower, colder. Other times she spoke words in a language the hooded stranger didn't understand. At night she no longer screamed in fear. She laughed. Low, broken laughter that echoed through the apartment. Chilling the air, the hooded stranger tried everything: candles, prayers, salt across the door. But none of it worked. The shadow was already inside. One night, as the hooded stranger begged her to fight, the woman tilted her head, eyes empty. "Why fight?" she whispered. The hooded stranger's hands trembled. "Because if you don't, he will take everything you are." The woman smiled softly. But the smile didn't belong to her. "He already has." The hooded stranger began to fear her. It was no longer the same broken woman she had met at the gas station. This was something else, a presence wrapped in her skin. One evening, the hooded stranger woke to find the woman standing at the edge of the bed, staring down at her. She whispered, "He says you don't belong here." The stranger sat up slowly, fear in her chest. "Don't listen. That's not him. It's the curse speaking." But the woman only tilted her head, her eyes glinting. "He says, you're next. By now." The woman could no longer separate her thoughts from his. When she spoke, it was both of them. When she moved, it was both of them. Her laughter was no longer hers alone. The shadow no longer needed to whisper. He spoke through her, and she let him. The takeover was almost complete when she stopped referring to herself as I. One morning, she looked at the hooded stranger and said softly, "We are stronger now." The hooded stranger froze. "We?" The woman smiled slowly, darkly. "Yes, we." Her body was still hers. Her face was still hers, but her soul was not. Every step she took now carried the weight of two beings, one human, one shadow. Every word she spoke was layered her voice. And his beneath it. The hooded stranger could only watch in horror. Realizing that the woman she once knew was gone, what stood before her was something else. Something ancient. Something cursed. And it was only growing stronger. That night, the woman stood in front of the mirror one last time. Her reflection smiled at her not as a stranger, but as a partner. The two faces, hers and his, moved together, speaking the same words, "We are one." And for the first time, she smiled back. The woman no longer avoided the outside world. For weeks she had lived in shadows, locked inside with her whispers, her mirrors, her fear, but now she stepped into the night with a strange calmness. Her shoulders were straight, her movements sharp, her eyes steady. The hooded stranger followed her quietly, heart heavy with dread. She knew this wasn't a simple walk. This was something else, something dangerous. The woman didn't speak as they moved down the empty street. Her silence was worse than her screams. Every step echoed like a drumbeat. Finally, the hooded stranger whispered, "Where are you going?" The woman's lips curved faintly, but her eyes stayed cold. To begin, the hooded stranger's breath caught. Begin what? The woman didn't answer. They reached a corner store, still lit though midnight had passed. The woman stopped outside, staring through the glass. A tired cashier sat behind the counter. Flipping through a magazine, the hooded stranger felt unease crawl through her chest. "Don't," she whispered, grabbing the woman's arm. But the woman's eyes never left the store. "He's hungry." The stranger's grip tightened. "Fight it. You can, please." The woman slowly turned her head, her eyes glinting. "You still don't understand. I'm not fighting him. I'm feeding him." The bell above the door rang softly as she stepped inside. The cashier barely looked up. Evening, the woman walked down the aisle slowly, her fingers brushing against the shelves. She didn't pick anything up. She didn't shop. She just moved, as if studying the space. The hooded stranger followed, her chest tight, whispering urgently, "Please, don't do this." The woman stopped in front of a mirror on the wall, one meant to prevent shoplifters. She stared at it for a long moment, and then, in front of the stranger, the reflection smiled wider than her real face. The hooded stranger gasped, stepping back. The cashier finally noticed. "Everything all right over there?" The woman turned slowly. Her smile was soft, calm. "Too calm, yes," she said. But her voice carried two tones, now hers, and his beneath it. The hooded stranger saw the shift happen in an instant. The woman's eyes darkened. Her posture straightened unnaturally. Her steps grew sharper, almost inhuman. The shadow was in control. She approached the counter, her voice low but steady. "Do you know me?" The cashier blinked, confused. No. Should I?" Her faint smile widened. "You will." Before the hooded stranger could stop her, the woman slammed her hand down on the counter. The lights above flickered violently. The cashier jumped, dropping his magazine. "What the hell?" The woman leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "He sees you." The hooded stranger rushed forward, grabbing her arm. "Stop. You don't have to do this." The woman didn't move. Her eyes stayed locked on the trembling cashier. For a moment, it seemed like she might lash out. Then, suddenly, she laughed, soft, chilling laughter. She stepped back, releasing the counter, and whispered, "Not yet." The hooded stranger pulled her outside quickly, heart racing. "What was that? Why would you scare him like that?" The woman looked at her, her face calm, her voice even. "Because he needed to know. Everyone will know soon." The stranger shook her head desperately. "No, this isn't you. You're letting him use you." The woman's faint smile returned. "No, I'm using him." The words cut through the air like ice. Over the next few nights, she repeated the same pattern, walking into random places, a diner, a bus station, a laundromat, staring too long at strangers, speaking words that made no sense, making lights flicker, objects fall, mirrors crack, never hurting anyone. Not yet, but leaving them terrified everywhere she went. People whispered afterward about this strange woman with cold eyes and a laugh that didn't belong, and every time she returned home, her smile grew darker. The hooded stranger knew it was only the beginning. One night, after returning from another unsettling walk, the woman sat by the window, staring out into the city lights. The hooded stranger, approached cautiously. "Why are you doing this?" The woman's eyes didn't leave the view. "Because fear feeds him. And when they fear me, they feed me too." The stranger's voice cracked. "You're not feeding yourself, you're feeding him. Every time you give in, you lose more of who you are." Finally, the woman turned. Her eyes empty but calm. "Maybe who I was doesn't matter anymore." The hooded stranger's heart broke. "It matters to me." The woman stared at her for a long time, silent. For just a moment, something flickered in her expression. A trace of the old her. But then it vanished, and the shadow smiled through her lips. The takeover wasn't complete until the first act was done, and the first act came. 3 nights later, it was raining. The streets slick and empty. The woman stood under a flickering streetlight, staring at a man smoking outside a bar. The hooded stranger begged in whispers, "Please, walk away." But the woman stepped closer, her voice low. "He's chosen." The man glanced at her uneasily. "You all right, lady?" She didn't answer. She just stared, her head tilting slowly. The man shifted nervously. "Okay. Have a good night." He started to walk back inside, and then the light above them burst. Showering sparks, the man stumbled back in shock. What the hell? The woman stepped into the darkness, her eyes glowing faintly, and she whispered words that weren't human. The man's face drained of color. His cigarette dropped from his shaking hand. He turned and ran into the night. Screaming, the woman stood still, watching him disappear into the rain, and then, softly, she laughed. The hooded stranger whispered, "Trembling, it's begun, hasn't it?" The woman turned to her, her smile sharp and cold. "Yes," she whispered. "The first act. The city did not know her name. To them, she was only a stranger who passed through, quiet, pale, unremarkable. But the shadow knew her. He wore her face. He used her voice. He had claimed her soul, and tonight he would claim much more. The rain had not stopped for days. The streets glistened with water, lights bending across puddles like broken glass. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled. The hooded stranger followed close, her body heavy with exhaustion and fear. She knew she couldn't stop what was coming, but she couldn't abandon the woman either. Not when there was still the faintest chance, just a spark that something human remained inside. The woman walked with purpose now, each step sharp, almost ritualistic. She did not look left or right, her eyes fixed on something only she could see. The stranger whispered, "Where are you going?" The woman did not answer. Her lips moved, but not for the stranger. She was speaking to him. They reached the heart of the city, a crowded square, still alive despite the storm. People hurried with umbrellas, laughing, shouting, complaining. None of them noticed her at first. She stepped into the center of the square and stopped. The hooded stranger's stomach turned to ice. "No," she whispered. "Not here." The woman slowly lifted her head. Her eyes glowed faintly in the rainlight. Her lips curved into a smile, and the lights around the square began to flicker. At first, people ignored it. A glitch in the power, nothing more than. Every street light, every neon sign, every glowing window began to stutter and crackle. The square filled with sharp, unnatural shadows that twisted and stretched across the wet ground. The crowd grew restless. People muttered nervously, glancing around. Then, one by one, the bulbs burst. Sparks rained down. Darkness fell. And in that instant, everyone saw her. A pale woman standing in the center. Her face lit only by the flashes of dying light. Her eyes burned, her smile widened, and when she laughed, it wasn't hers. It was his. The square erupted in chaos. People screamed, shoving each other, fleeing into the rain. Some fell. Others dropped their belongings, umbrellas crashing to the ground. But no matter how far they ran, the sound of her laughter followed. The hooded stranger ran to her, grabbing her shoulders. "Stop this. You don't have to do this. You can still fight." For a moment, the woman's smile faltered. For a moment, her eyes flickered, not glowing, but human. The stranger saw it. the trace of the woman she once was. Please, she begged, tears mixing with the rain. You're still in there. Don't let him win. The woman's lips trembled. Her breath caught. But then the shadow surged forward, taking her face, her body, her voice, and she whispered, "We have already won." The ground shook. Not an earthquake. Not thunder. Something deeper. The air grew heavy, pressing down on everyone still trapped in the square. The shadows thickened, moving like living smoke. They crawled up walls, across the ground. Reaching for those too slow to run, a man tripped, falling into the dark pool spreading beneath his feet. His scream tore through the night before it cut off. Swallowed by silence, the hooded stranger's heart pounded, her throat tight. No, this can't be happening. The woman turned to her slowly. Her eyes glowed brighter now, burning like fire. This is only the beginning. The stranger fell to her knees, sobbing. Please, fight him. I know you're still there. I know you can hear me. For a split second, the woman froze. Her hands trembled. Her breath stuttered. And in that fragile pause, her true voice whispered. Barely audible, "Help me." The hooded stranger's eyes widened. She clutched the woman's hands desperately. "Yes, I can help you. Hold on to me. Push him out. You're stronger than him." The woman's lips quivered. Her eyes flickered again, struggling, but the shadow roared inside her, his voice tearing through the night. "She is mine." The woman screamed, clutching her head, falling to the ground. Her body convulsed, torn between two forces, her fragile humanity and the monstrous will inside her. The hooded stranger cried out, holding her tightly, "Don't let go. Fight him. Please fight." The woman's voice split into two, hers and his. "I can't," she gasped. "You are mine." Wormed. He growled. The rain poured harder, thunder cracking above. The shadows writhed like serpents across the square, and then silence. The woman rose slowly. Her eyes glowed brighter than ever. Her smile was not her own. The hooded stranger's heart shattered. She knew the fight was over. The shadow had won. The woman, no longer herself, stood tall in the storm. Her voice carried across the empty square, layered with something inhuman. "This city will remember my name." The hooded stranger whispered, broken. "What? What are you?" The shadow smiled through the woman's lips. "We are the dark you tried to forget." The first scream rang out in the distance, someone who had seen too much. Then another, and another. The city was waking to the horror that had been unleashed, and the woman, standing at the center, laughed softly, not her laugh. Never again her laugh. The shadow had found his vessel. The shadow had found his voice, and now the world was his stage.